All right, welcome everybody to Spirituality. My name is Kat, and I am a longtime astral traveler and spirit consultant. And this is my good buddy and colleague Joanna.
Hi.
And this is just where we dish reality on spiritual topics as two longtime practitioners and talk about what we really think is going on with certain spiritual topics. Today we were contemplating what to talk about, and I was having kind of a hard time getting my thoughts together around it because I thought to myself I had had kind of a difficult time maintaining my vibe this week in the modern world and challenges that we deal with. So I asked Spirit what we should talk about, and I got this card up, triggers. So it looks like my week having to deal with the real world and still maintain my vibe is a pretty solid topic probably for everybody. After all, everybody lives in the same modern world and everybody's still trying to maintain their vibe regardless of everything that's going on. What do you think, Joanna? Have you had challenges recently trying to maintain your vibe in the modern world?
Definitely, Kat. I mean, after all, this is life. We have to go through all, ups and downs and so many things in our lives. And just to try to stay high vibe all the time is just not, you know, I don't want to say possible. It's just not realistic, really. Especially when we have certain situations that come in our lives, we have to kind of maneuver through them and not knowing what to even do, right? Like, what do we do?
Yeah, I feel like
hmm
sometimes it can be challenging to know what which way is the most spiritually sound. I had been telling you, and I may as well tell everybody, I had my mother-in-law over for Mother's Day, and I don't get along with her terribly well. So it was one of those situations, envy. Is that for me or for her?
This is the situation. I pulled cards for you, and it says envy. This is the card that
Yeah.
fell out, envy, and then this one is the root chakra. So just keeping, very grounded.
Yes. Well, I definitely had the conundrum between compassion and boundaries, right? Because it's Mother's Day, I don't want anyone to feel excluded. That's not who I am as a person, but also kind of wanted my Mother's Day with me and my mom to be fun and good. Do you know what I mean? So it was a interesting conundrum is which road do you take in certain situations? So it can be hard to navigate some things. Yeah, the second card that I pulled when it came out was choice. And so I feel like creating space in between you and a situation to choose your response helps in a lot of situations. That can
Because
be a challenging balance to maintain sometimes.
yeah, it's that exactly, and it's learning because maneuvering through all different personalities. We have all these personalities out there. Some are very, I don't know. It's almost like they want to pick fights. There's some personalities that just like want to pick fights with you, and
Mhm.
cause just really like not good feelings, and you debating whether to walk away from that completely and just go elsewhere, or kind of stand your power and speak up. Right? It's this thing going, do I speak up and say it, or do I just kind of walk away and kind of just go elsewhere? And it depends on the situation, right? To each their own. And but in the end, I've realized that regardless, I'm not going to allow anybody to make me feel less than, and even if I want to have a nice peaceful time, I say my piece. I continue to do whatever I have to do to keep the peace in myself.
Yeah. And really, at the end of the day, it's really just affecting you or me. Like, what I found out was that really, regardless of what I did, it's me that's over ruminating on it. It's sort of like sometimes, especially with certain people, like you said, people who people who like to start fights, people who are feisty, and they're all over the place, especially right now, especially on the internet. Um, People like to pick fights about things. And honestly, it's all about how I mentally process something afterwards for myself. Because I kind of find that, like, regardless of how I handled the situation in the moment, I tend to be overly hard on myself about the situation unnecessarily. Do you know what I mean? Like I'll play it over in my mind and be like, what could I have done differently? Or did I really stand up for myself well? Like I sort of have a tendency to be overly judgmental on myself about a situation afterwards, which I think is really where the harshing of the vibe comes from, not so much from the incident, but how I process the incident the way it happened. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And I have to say, I do get the same way. If not many people, or like, majority of people, is because when a situation happens, we don't really know how to respond many times, especially when it just comes out of nowhere. And when we respond, however, we decided to respond on, and then we sit on it and process it. We have to understand not to give us a, ourselves so much blame on the situation because we're all learning. But the best thing, Kat, that you do, and then I do the same, is I reflect on it. I think, okay, what happened? What did I do that was actually serving me and actually help the situation? And what did I say maybe that I shouldn't have said, or I should say, in a different way? And that's the best way to go about life. When a situation happens, no matter what it is, to actually sit with it for a little bit, but not overanalyze, because we could sit with those thoughts for so long and just stress and worry, going, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? And
Yeah,
all we have to do is going, this is the situation. This is, serving me, not serving me, and then just move on, going, I'll do better next time. And that's it. And we have to be more kinder to ourselves, because you only did the best what you know from that situation, right?
yeah. Yeah, it's possible, and I've done this to myself, I don't know how many times, you ever get in a situation and then be like, you actually make yourself angrier the more you think about it, the more you play it over in your head, and you're like, you know what? No, you actually like get yourself more worked up afterwards, having internal arguments with yourself about it. Like, no, you know what? That was messed up. That shouldn't have gone down like that. And it actually like you're kind of harshing your own vibe going over it. I do it to myself all the time. It's
Yeah.
the modern world can be tricky to navigate, like I said, especially with so many opinions out there and everybody feeling very passionate about things at this. I'll just call it like that. People feeling very passionate about things at certain times. It can be challenging not to wind up having the argument over with myself.
Yes, Kat. And you know, I just laugh only because I get that way too. When I have a situation, it's kind of like you do a dialogue. It's this, we live in our heads all day long. So we have to remember to be kind to ourselves because you are your best friend. So how do you speak to your best friend going, hey, if your best friend did something, said something to you that you didn't like, what are you going to go and yell at them and be cruel to them? No. We have to remember to be kind to ourselves and go, hey, listen. And literally like talking to like, hey, listen, maybe I should have said it a little differently, processed a little differently, and go, you know what, next time we'll do better, okay? And that's it. And I laugh only because like I have the way that I process things, the way that I have a lot of humor in it. Like I laugh
Mhm.
going, oh, I can't say that word here, but holy and I laugh going,
You could say it.
um,
I'll just bleep you out.
yeah,
We'll
just
just beep it. It's
thinking
fine.
of life, thinking of life situations, like we're all only human learning and maneuvering through life and all these things. This is like you said, there's no, blueprint of how you're supposed to go about things, and you're just learning, but it's about improvement. That's the point of it. Going, if we don't actually look how to better ourselves, our communication, even the way that we talk to ourselves and to others. But that's the thing. It's beautiful because you want to improve, right? But
Mhm.
not to sit there and overanalyze. I laugh half the time, I laugh at
I
my
think
situations
sometimes
going, this is unbelievable.
I think sometimes it can be interesting because like I said, the first card that came out was triggers, right? And I think it can be interesting when we get into a situation that feels harsh to us or judgy to us. Sometimes it can tell us a lot about what our own triggers are. Like the reason I don't get along with my mother-in-law is because I feel judged as a mother. Like she doesn't necessarily approve of how I raise her grandchild, so it makes me feel judged. That's a trigger for me. But the trigger has more to do with how I feel about things than it does with her, so it can be explorative too. You know what I mean? It tells me what things probably I need to look at for my own healing I probably have some guilt feelings over, how I handle my child, how I'm a mom in the modern world. I'm a busy mom. I do a lot of things that aren't necessarily centered around my children. And so I probably do have some of those societal judgments that I'm judging myself on.
We're in a really unique time of like age of Aquarius where, the Pluto is going away, and Pluto is kind of the old ways, right? So, being judged or criticized for however you do things is coming from the person, is how they would do things. It's nothing actually to do with us. It's actually to do
Hmm.
with how they judge themselves. And I remember one time somebody once told me, going, when somebody was like upset when I was at work or something years ago, and they said, Joanna, do you understand that has nothing to do with you? I'm like, oh. I was like, oh, it has to do with however that person is feeling about themselves. And then in hindsight, also, you said it makes you reveal things for yourself to heal. The
Hmm.
triggers, that's the point. We are triggered because there's something not healed within ourselves. Because if it's healed, you wouldn't have you wouldn't have a negative feeling or a reaction or a respond reaction, hopefully not reaction. And it just shows us, you know, components, parts of us that we need healing. And the other thing I want to say is the people that challenge you the most are your biggest teachers. You heard that saying before, right? So,
Hmm.
I mean, my daughter is my biggest teacher, and I love her to bits and pieces, but she challenges me in every single way, even though we are like best buddies too, because she's opposite signs from me. She's Virgo, and she is very set in her ways. I'm a little more flexible, and she's very, very stern, and she knows what she wants and all this stuff, and this teaches me
Hmm.
different things. So what did you get out of that, Kat? If you have like, from in your mind, what would you conclude from that situation for yourself about how to
Well,
kind of go
the
about
other
it now?
card that came up with it that I haven't shown yet that I pulled for me was negativity, right? Or getting yourself into a negative rumination cycle. So, what I feel like with this situation, and really with any situation where we're having difficulty interacting or maintaining our vibe with just the modern era, and it could be not just with people, but with work situations or, sitting in traffic, things taking up too much of our time, all of these sorts of things that press in on our vibration that come from just having to maintain daily. Because let's face it, most of us are not, we may be spirituals, but we're not gurus sitting on a mountaintop communing with trees most of the time. Most of the time, we're communing with traffic and the people in the drive-through, and you know what I mean? So maintaining that, it's not quite as simple as it's made out to be sometimes. And I think
Exactly.
that for me, anytime it's important to remember that how people feel is always a reflection of themselves, not of you. But it's also true about how you feel. Like we were both saying that if something feels like that to you, it's a trigger for you. So why is it triggering you? It's a question to ask yourself. And if something is triggering to somebody else, then that's something they have going on. It's important not to try not to take it so personally. It can be hard to remember to do that in the moment. That's why it's kind of like a reflection thing. And I think it's also like you're saying, not to be too hard on yourself over situations because let's face it, they're going to come up. Like if you're going to, you
Yeah,
can't be hard on
exactly.
yourself over every situation that comes up.
Exactly, Kat. And I think the most important thing to do is, yeah, like I said, not to be hard on yourself and be more compassionate because we're all only human. And when you were saying that, the funny thing, like we're not gurus, we're not, this is exactly what I had in my life where I prefer, to be in my little happy cave, not dealing
Mm-hmm.
with the outside world, and sitting on a mountaintop, which I have done. I have traveled different parts of the world and have actually isolated myself for the purpose of not dealing with humans. Because, I'm super sensitive. I just had enough at some point, and I got back to the real world because that's where we really exist and we have to process these things. The number one thing is to reflect on the situation and not to sit in it for too long, because we consider in our minds all day long. Whatever we focus on, we bring more of that to us. So the more we worry of how we shoulda, coulda, woulda, the more of that kind of magnetizes to us. So we just need to go, sit, process it, and release it as soon as we can.
It's kind of, for me, it brings up thoughts too of like of unconditional love. It's it feels sometimes like it's way easier to apply that to other people and be compassionate and forgiving with other people than it is sometimes to be compassionate and forgiving with ourselves. Like, as mad as I might be at somebody, it's way easier for me to go, well, they're a soul on their soul journey, and you know what I mean? It's fine. Everybody's valid. It's easier for me to say that about other people sometimes than it is for me to look at myself and go, you know what? It's okay. You're a soul on your soul journey. If you didn't do it perfectly, it seems like it's way easier to accept that about other people for some reason.
Yeah. I think it's like a psychology thing, like where in this modern world, we don't really we're not taught to love ourselves, do we? No. Does anybody come to us in school somewhere and teach us how to love ourselves? No. Do our parents? Well, they try in the way that they know how to. And it's so important to always remember to love ourselves, really, even because the more we literally love ourselves, the more compassionate we are ourselves and more kind, because you are your own best friend. Remember that. You have you for your whole entire life. So talk to yourself as you were talking to your best friend. And when we remember that, you go, oh, I wouldn't have said all those mean things, putting myself down so much and overanalyzing to my best friend, you know? And we have to kind of reflect on that, and I do that too. Trust me, I'm there.
I wonder sometimes, here's a contemplation, and I wonder what you think about it. I wonder sometimes, you know how everybody seems to have that little voice in their head that's like extra harsh for whatever reason? And I've wondered to myself sometimes if, because we spend so much time trying to be easy and compassionate with everyone else, that it's like the voice in our head is the only one that gets to be loud and nasty. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So it's like you spend so much time repressing things and not expressing yourself to other people that the only person you get to really be honest and express yourself against and unleash that against is yourself. Because we're taught to be so repressed and so gentle with others. Do you think that that's a thing that happens? I've wondered about that.
Yes, Kat, definitely. I think it's the old world. Now we're stepping into a new world, and the new world is to be more authentic, honest with not only yourself but with others. This is a new world we're walking into, and it's not like we just stepped into it. It's actually like gradually coming in, and you notice, and I've noticed in myself, because what I was, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago is different than what I'm becoming now. And the new world is coming into play. And what does that mean? That means more authenticity, being more real with yourself, and saying, hey, I'm not going to any longer hold these feelings inside of myself. I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to let the other person know, because this is toxic to my body. The more we realize we have to love ourselves more, the more it means that no, nobody's going to treat me that way and say these things to me, and we're going to maneuver in our own way. It's like gradual, it's like drops in the ocean, right? It's step by step. It's not overnight where suddenly you just kind of like tell somebody how you feel. I mean, you can, but it usually takes confidence and being sure in yourself, and how to go about it takes time. To have the boundaries and to speak up. I mean, that's the two most important things. And speak up. I'm not going to hold that toxicity inside of myself, because then that's poison for me. I'm not holding that poison.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, and that brings into question like some broader perspective sorts of things. Because you know how you were talking about how the world is shifting, people's viewpoints are shifting, the socializations for people are shifting. We're focusing more as a society on authenticity and on standing up for yourself, and being confident is definitely like where previously the focus was all on politeness, polite society, behaving correctly, you know what I mean, keeping the peace, staying in line. I wonder if that's fueling, because it's also kind of challenging when you have everybody unleashed all at once. So you have all everybody's opinions, and everybody's unleashing, especially on the internet, and throwing their opinions around and standing up for what they believe. And it's like, until people just get all of that out of their system and learn to do it in a more balanced way, do you think we're just seeing some of the, like, the inner repression or the inner anger is just sort of coming out willy-nilly right now?
Yes, Kat. So in this time that we have now, when the age of Aquarius comes in, people are going to think, oh, wow, age of Aquarius, all this evolution, all this. Well, it comes with that, meaning it has to actually be purged out. So all that repression is going to come out. So you're going to see things that are going to look more chaotic. You're going to see more people acting out and all this other things. Where meanwhile, all it really is actually the truth coming to the surface. So in a sense, it's going to look like not good, chaotic, almost in a sense out of control, but it's kind of realigning itself to bring us to where we need to be, is speaking the truth, being honest with ourselves in the world, what's really happening in our governments, in ourselves, in society, in our relationships, everything. And I agree, Kat, because that's what's actually going to happen. And people are going to go and say, "Oh my God, the world is becoming mad" or something. But
Mm-hmm.
meanwhile, it's actually just rearranging itself the way it should.
Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of sentiment right now. Things look very chaotic and wild, but yeah, come to think of it, it may just be that society no longer wants to be repressed and only abusing themselves on the inside. It's like everybody wants to just be able to say things out loud. It's probably for the better to get all of that cleared out.
Yeah. So, Kat, I pulled two cards in that topic. One is Treasure Island with a turtle with a
Mm-hmm.
treasure on top of it, and the other one is Why. So the way that I see these cards is like bring your own sunshine, meaning no matter what's going on in the world, always focus on your own happiness, your own well-being, because the world is going to look like it's going to get chaotic, but that's just, I don't say it's an illusion. It's like how the world's rearranging itself. Always focus. You are the turtle. Slow and
Mm-hmm.
steady. You have your treasure. Just keep your joy and happiness within yourself no matter what. Keep your environment as peaceful as you can, and knowing that whatever anybody's going through has nothing to do with you, and just kind of wash that away, clean off that dirt, that debris, because in the end, that peace is the richest thing you could ever be, at peace with yourself. That is the richest thing you could ever do. And that richness you're going to have in life is going to bring you even more abundance. Be abundant in your soul means just process the stuff and always love yourself. Because this is what we're here for. We're here to experience all this stuff and not be kind to ourselves.
Yeah, I think you may be right about like the whole shift in the way society is going altogether. Like, it's time for us to create and celebrate nut life, not mourn it or fear it or try to conform to it, but to get into the joy of expressing through it. I think
Mhm.
that's definitely a way we're moving into, and it just kind of looks messy and loud and angry and chaotic right now. Well, people who were previously really repressed are letting everything out and expressing. But I think that phase of it will pass.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Joanna, for joining me for this chit chat. Thanks for chatting with me about spirituality and navigating the modern world. If you guys have comments or thoughts that you'd like to drop, feel free to join in the conversation in the comments section below. Again, you can always check out Joanna at Mind Healing Guide and at Confessions of a Quantum Channeler. Those links will be in the description. And we will see you guys next time for another episode of Spirituality.